Did the XFL have a sophomore slump in week 2? Stay tuned to find out. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Harley. This is the Six Pack Bass YouTube channel. We cover everything XFL as well as I do fish. All right, guys, you heard it. Week 2 is in the books for the XFL. Coming hot off of week 1. A lot of hype built around this league. So let's dig in and see if there was a sophomore slump or if it lived up to the hype. All right, guys, first game up for week 2, we saw the New York Guardians taking on the DC Defenders. Both of these teams came into this game undefeated. Two highly touted defenses. McGloin was coming off a great showing in week 1, as well as Cardale Jones. As I said in my previous video, I was very curious to see how these quarterbacks would compete against two solid defenses. Curious to see how that quarterback battle plays out and who gets the better of the defense. This one was a blowout.
Woohoo! Big summer blowout.
Guardians ended up losing this one 27-0. Couldn't muster anything, couldn't even get a field goal.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, that's unfortunate.
Matt McGloin, there's issues on that offensive side of the ball. Matt McGloin was not happy. He even voiced those concerns on national television.
We need to change the whole entire game plan at halftime.
Not a good look for New York. So for a team that I thought coming out of week 1 was going to be a solid contender, they are definitely going in the wrong direction in my opinion. DC was all over them in this game. Like I said, 27-0, so we had our first shutout of the XFL. McGloin was actually benched at the end of the first half, so didn't play in the second half. He had 2 interceptions on the day. Marquise Williams ended up taking his spot. Not sure if that's who they're going to roll with going forward or if they're going to bring in Luis Perez. But it doesn't look good right now for the New York Guardians. They went 1 of 11 on third down. If you guys remember in my previous video, I talked about the Renegades. Their struggles were on third down. New York, 1 of 11 on third down. It's not going to win you any football games. DC's defense continues to be the face of this team. Cardale Jones had a solid day, but this Defenders defense is the real deal. They ended up having another pick 6, second week in a row that this defense has got on the board, and they're going to be something to reckon with. I'm very curious down the road to see how they do against the PJ Walkers, against the Jordan Tamus, these higher end quarterbacks. I cannot wait for those matchups. It's going to be a good one.
Let's get it all!
And like I said, I wrote here, Cardale plays well enough to win. He didn't do anything that necessarily stood out to me, but he also didn't make any mistakes, had a clean game. So long as you're protecting the ball and you have the #1 defense in the league, you're going to win some football games. And they move on 2-0, 27-0. Defenders take this one easily. It is worth noting attendance in this one dropped slightly. For the second week, they had a little over 15,000 fans. Week 1 was over 17,000. So not a bad drop off. I will say weather probably played a little bit of a factor. It was super cold that day, but not bad for week 2 for the DC fans. Game number 2, we saw the Tampa Bay Vipers taking on the Seattle Dragons. Both of these teams coming in were looking for their first win. Seattle, home opener. If you remember, they were pushing their fans, challenging them to try and get 30,000 in attendance. They came up just short. A little over 29,000 is what they ended up having, but that's huge for this league. So Seattle fans, kudos to you for coming out in droves. That place was definitely rocking, and it definitely affected this game. Dragons end up taking this one 17-9. Murray was out in this one, so we weren't sure, would we see Cornelius, would we see Quentin Flowers, would we see a mix? We ended up getting a mix. Combined, those two quarterbacks, though, threw 3 interceptions. Struggles continue on the quarterback, or at the quarterback position for Tampa Bay. A little bit of a carousel, but I think that as bad as Murray played in week 1, he definitely is still the starter of this team. Neither of these other guys came in and lit it up, so I think that Murray, moving forward, once he's healthy, will continue to be the starter. It is worth noting, guys, Tampa Bay's offense, for as bad as it looks, I was looking at them on paper. Week 1, they had 394 yards of total offense. Week 2, they had 289. They actually had the most yards of any offense in week 1. Their woes and struggles continue to be not being able to finish drives and those costly turnovers. Turnovers are killing them right now, and not being able to put it in the end zone. They're able to move the ball up and down the field, but once they get closer to the red zone, they end up either turning the ball over or having to settle for a field goal. And we all know you do not win games settling for field goals and turning the ball over in the red zone. Got to cash in, got to punch it in. And in this game, no different. They went 0 for 7 in the red zone. So like I said, they were moving the ball, but they never were able to punch it in. They are still searching for their first offensive touchdown, and I say offensive because the defense actually got a pick 6 in this one. So Tampa Bay now has their first touchdown. They are still, however, searching for that offensive touchdown. Silvers did not do so great. He did enough to win. He had one big play to Keelan Reynolds, 68-yard bomb touchdown pass, and really outside of that, he was non-existent. Did not look the greatest. But it is worth noting they had 3 guys on their offensive line that were out with injury. So the offensive line was banged up. I had said last week that I felt Austin Proehl would be a difference maker in this game. He was targeted 4 times, had 1 catch for -1 yards, but a lot of that was the struggles from Brandon Silvers. So kind of just throw that out the window. I believe that he's still going to be a threat in this league. Nonetheless, Dragons get their first win in front of their home crowd, and they advance on to 1-1. 17-9 was the final in this one, guys. Guys, real quick, if you are enjoying this content, do me a favor. Hit that like button for me. Follow me on the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram. Twitter's a big one for me. That's where I usually share a lot of my content, so I'll go ahead and link that down below. It's just at SixPackBass. So head over there, give me a follow. If you know somebody that would enjoy my content, be sure and share this video out. I would greatly appreciate it if we could just grow this community. I want to keep bringing these to you. This league is very exciting to me, something I'm passionate about. All right, let's move on. Game number 3. Dallas Renegades taking on the LA Wildcats. LA Wildcats home opener. Both of these teams searching for their first win. This game was a dud. For 3 quarters anyway, this game was a dud. So 3 quarters of football. After 3 quarters, the game was 6-3 Dallas. So it was sloppy, 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 sloppy.
So it was sloppy, 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 sloppy.
But the 4th quarter, whoo! If you didn't watch anything but the 4th quarter, then you got to see a great game, in my opinion.
And totally redeem yourself.
Renegades ended up winning this one 25-18. Attendance in this one for LA was just under 15,000, so not bad there. There were 5 turnovers in this game though, guys. Like I said, slop fest back and forth. Landry Jones got his very first start in this one, as well as Josh Johnson. So both of these teams finally had their starting quarterback. It took a little while, especially for Landry Jones, in my opinion, to get his feel of the game. He even voiced opposite of McGloin rather than blaming his offensive coordinator or the offense around him. Landry Jones took that weight and he basically came out and said, I'm struggling right now. This offense isn't moving the ball because of me and I have to play better. So kudos to him for being that captain, that team leader, and putting that weight on his shoulder. Cameron Artis-Payne. We almost had our first 100-yard rusher. Cameron Artis-Payne, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, was averaging over 7 yards a carry. For this team being the air raid, it was more like the run raid because LA had no answer for the ground game, and that in turn opened it up for Landry to be able to toss the rock around. I predicted in week 1 that they would rely heavily on Artis-Payne, and they really didn't. I thought their game plan was crappy in week 1. You have a backup quarterback and you're forcing him to throw the ball over 40 times. Not a good recipe in my opinion, but they finally got the running game going and we're starting to see what that air raid offense can be capable of, especially when they have Landry Jones back at the helm. Dallas gave up 57 total rushing yards. Last week, they got crushed on the ground by St. Louis. This week, that defense stepped up, rose to the occasion. 57 total yards. They gave up 191 last week. They almost pretty much flipped the script. They gave up 191 last week and they rushed for almost 200 this week. So kudos to them. Definitely trending in the right direction. Nelson Spruce is going to be a beast in this league. He was the bright spot for the LA Wildcats. Ended up having 2 touchdowns, and like I said, he's sure-handed. That's all there is to it. Him and Proehl both, I believe, going to be studs in this league. Josh Johnson, he provided a spark. You could tell that with him back there, that offense, they were going more up-tempo, more no huddle, and he does have a cannon for an arm, and he can ring it in there. There's going to be some time, it's going to take some time for them to work out some of the issues. You know, some of the long passes he missed by a yard and a half, just barely overthrew the receiver, but the plays were there to be made. That is a positive for you LA fans. This game was 6-3 at the end of the 3rd quarter, so it was pretty much a sleeper, not looking good, and then 4th quarter, boom, this game broke wide open. We did see our first 3-point conversion. LA converted on a 3-pointer. However, I'm going to put an asterisk next to this because there was a penalty that actually was half the distance to the goal. They really didn't have to go as far as a true 3-pointer to get the 3 points. But nonetheless, we saw our first one converted. I will say, I do not like the look of Winston Moss sitting down on the sideline with a towel during the game. To me, you're the head coach of this football team, and they're going to embody and embrace your mannerisms. And for me, that just told me that we're just kind of here to draw a paycheck. You know, we're in LA in the sun, just kind of sitting back, coasting. I don't think ever in the history, at least for me, that I've watched a football game, or really much of any sports, where the coach sits down, especially in football. I know for a fact in football, I can't even recall a time where a head coach just sat down. Not a good look. I hope that gets corrected moving forward. To me, that's unprofessional. But anyway, LA drops their home opener. Dallas takes this one 25-18. So LA is still searching for their first win. Moving on to the last game, the nightcap. This one, guys, I had originally said that the Guardians DC game was going to be the game of the week. This one was the game of the week. All right, I want to jump right into it. Attendance for this one, this was Houston's second home game, 17,103. So good Houston crowd. Keeps turning out. Back and forth on this one. This was two undefeated teams, and it filled the billing. Jordan Ta'amu, 81% completion, had 2 costly turnovers in this one, though. He played solid. If you take away those 2 turnovers, he played great, in my opinion. I'm very impressed with this St. Louis team, guys. They ended up dropping this one 28-24, but this team is going to be a contender, big contender in the East, especially now that New York is shaky and Tampa Bay is falling off the map. It's definitely going to come down to DC and St. Louis in the East. And St. Louis, top to bottom for me, St. Louis is the most well-rounded team in the East. So DC, strap up, because St. Louis can beat anybody in this league at any given time. Like I said, take away these two interceptions. There were costly turnovers in this game. They may end up winning this one. They have the most balanced offense. They do a good job of spreading the ball around and using the run game to help supplement that pass game, as well as their defense flies to the ball. You know, they're solid from top to bottom, in my opinion. Plus, they have the best punter in the league in Marquette King. So you mix that, and that's going to win you some games. PJ Walker is electric. Electric, guys. That's all I can say. He was making a sidearm throw for a touchdown. Really just cruise control for most of this game. Escape artist. There was plenty of times where he was dead to rights and he was able to escape, break out, and make a big play. Really impressed with what PJ Walker's put together. Had 3 touchdowns in this game. So he's thrown for 7 touchdowns in 2 games, or accounted for 7 touchdowns in 2 games. Cam Phillips, guys, seems to be the favorite target. He had 3 touchdowns in this game. Kind of surprised Sammy Coates has not got involved. They're spreading the ball around really well. Like I said, PJ Walker is extending plays, and that's gonna keep that train rolling for these guys. This game was a very close game. Like I said, it ended up 28-24. St. Louis was never really out of it. They stayed right there. Like I said, take away those 2 Ta'amu interceptions, and who knows where this thing is going to go at the end. Houston stays undefeated at 2-0. St. Louis drops their first game. All right, that's going to wrap up week 2. I'm just going to hit you real quick with my 5 takeaways from this week. Number 1, guys, and this is an issue for me, and it may just be a pet peeve. You guys may really enjoy this. The sideline reporters and the locker room reporters are a distraction. Too many times it feels forced. They don't know what to ask. You know, I'm just going to go to one game in particular, that LA WILDCATS game and the Dallas Renegades. They asked Josh Johnson literally the same question 5 or 6 times throughout that game, and he gave pretty much the same answer. Just got to keep playing. We got to make better plays. We got to continue our strategy. Keep doing our thing. Just got to keep playing. I understand what they want to do. They want to make it more fan intrinsic, but there also has to be some sacredness, so to speak. So the sidelines, the locker room, especially the locker room, you know, these guys are trying to make halftime adjustments. They only get 10 minutes, and when you got a reporter coming in and trying to stick in to listen to their adjustments, I get what they're doing. And a lot of coaches now are like trying to block out the cameras, because that's your strategy. What we talk about in the locker room is on a need-to-know basis. And if you're not part of this team, then you don't need to know. Get him out of here! And so I feel like they need to back off on some of that. It's awkward for the players, it's awkward for the reporters, and it's awkward for the fans. So I hope going forward there is actually less of that, especially right after a guy makes a horrible play. You know, you miss a field goal, and the reporter runs right up to you and is like, hey, so what do you think you could have done better? Made the field goal? I mean, why you ask the obvious questions? But anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Rant over. Number 2, PJ Walker is the face of this league. I know preseason a lot of people said that Dallas Renegades and Landry Jones, Bob Stoops, those guys were the face of this league. After 2 weeks, PJ Walker. If you wrote XFL down and asked somebody, what do you know about the XFL? They probably would say PJ Walker, because he's on every highlight reel after 2 weeks. Dude's electric and probably going to have some phone calls at the end of this season because he's probably going to get called up to the NFL. Quarterback carousel continues. So for as great as PJ Walker has been, a lot of the other teams have struggled at the quarterback position. You know, you look at Tampa Bay. They've had 3 different quarterbacks play, and all 3 of them basically the same result. Not good. New York, you thought they had everything together after week 1. No, come to find out, Tampa Bay is that bad. Matt McGloin is not that good. Moving on to Seattle. You know, Brandon Silvers had a great showing in week 1, comes home in front of his home crowd and kind of lays an egg minus 1 big play. Definitely a big gap between the top contenders and the bottom feeders as far as quarterback play goes. So I'm hoping that it's just early in the season. A lot of these teams line out, but it's only a 10-game season. You're not going to be able to drop too many games and still be contending for the playoffs. 4 weeks in, if you're 0-4, there's a good chance you're probably already out of the playoffs before half of the season has even hit us. Moving on to number 4. The under is the safe bet. So this league touted itself as high pace, high scoring, action. And after 2 weeks, most of these games have been under the over-under. So I put that back on what I just said about the quarterback carousel. You've got a few teams that have a good, solid starting quarterback, and then the rest are still kind of fill this thing out. A lot of these teams on the big play, big passes, they're missing by a yard and a half. And I'm sure some of that is, the longer this goes along, they're going to get more chemistry and they're going to be able to fill out their receivers. So hoping that later throughout the season, we start seeing some more points on the board. But don't take anything away from these defenses. A lot of these teams, their defense, they are balling out. And I've been very impressed. They hit hard, make sound tackles. So that side of the ball, very impressed. Number 5, gameplay will continue to get better. This ties into number 4. I think as this league goes along, we're only going to get better. I hate that people talk about expansion already, because I go back to the Alliance. You know, so many people after 3 or 4 weeks in the Alliance are like, oh, let's expand here, let's expand here. No, let's get through a season first, and let's actually have us a championship and crown a champion before we even worry about any kind of expansion. And I know part of that is the excitement and, you know, these markets that want a team. And I love all of that, but I hope that they pump the brakes a little bit. Let's don't spread too thin too quickly, because that will be our demise, and I want this league to last. All right, guys, that's going to conclude week 2. Again, if you're not already at this point and you've stayed along this far, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button with the bell notification. That's going to let you know when I come out with another video. Like I said, every week I will be bringing out content covering this league, as well as smash that like button. That just lets YouTube know that this is good content, and they will share it amongst the masses. Helps us grow, helps me make better content for you guys. All right, guys, I'm going to catch you later in the week whenever I give you my week 3 predictions. So stay tuned. I'm out.